I was all excited for them. I don't want books to be bad. I don't want books to be disappointing. I want to love them. Hello everyone, my name is Bethany and this is my channel Denise Thoughts. Welcome back. Today I'm talking about my most disappointing of 2020. Okay, I know there's controversy about like the worst books of 2020 that like you shouldn't put authors down or whatever, which I don't necessarily agree with. And I think everyone's able to have their own opinions of a book. And these are not necessarily bad books. These books just necessarily didn't work for me. And that is okay, because everyone's allowed to have their own opinions how they feel about books. And these ones didn't work for me. And these ones I was really, really excited for, or hyped for, or whatever the case was, and then I ended up being disappointed about. So I wouldn't call them worst books, but definitely my most disappointing books of 2020 for me. I read this before I started BookTube early on in 2020, and I just had to mention it because I hated the book so much. It was Saving CC Honeycutt by Beth Hoffman. It was just your stereotypical book written by a white woman about a black people's experience, but not very well written. Like, it was The Help meets To Kill a Mockingbird meets The Secret Life of Bees, only really bad. That's the only way I can describe this book. It just wasn't very good. It was really cringeworthy. I listened to an audio and I really didn't like the narration. It introduced all these different topics and then like concluded them really easily, like, and everything's fine and dandy, like it was like the Full House episode every chapter. I really, really did not like this book. Disappointing read on that one. The next one is going to be Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. And most of these that I owned, I've already unhauled, if that tells you anything about this list. This Sea Witch was one I unhauled. I love a Little Mermaid retelling, I'm not going to lie. But granted, the Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid original story is sad as hell and is kind of messed up if you think about it, if you read it. It's depressing. Hans Christian Andersen was like going through shit. Sea Witch was a Little Mermaid retelling, so it was kind of loosely a retelling sort of a Hans Christian Andersen, but also kind of like a retelling of Ursula. Like, I felt like we got like the Disney version somehow, but not really. It was all about the plotting and the pacing. The plotting and pacing of it was so not good. How it all came together was really fascinating, actually really interesting, but it didn't make up for the fact that like for the first 300 pages or 250 pages or whatever, I was bored out of my mind, and the last 50 pages everything happens. I can't have a book like that. I cannot. So that was the kind of story it was for me. I was really disappointed in it. It just wasn't the kind of retelling story that I wanted. It was a big disappointment, for sure. Sarah Nee. I loved Sarah Nee, How to Date a Douchebag series. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Anything that Sarah Nee has come out with this year has been a huge disappointment for me. I've read like 2 or 3 of her books because she's on Kindle Unlimited, so she's always a really fun, quick read for me. And I've really liked her stuff before. But the last like 2 or 3 books I read of hers this year were all huge flops for me. They were just not good. Her characters were off, or the chemistry wasn't good, or the story just wasn't developed enough. Yeah, either, I don't know what it was, but just anything that I read by Sarah Nee this year ended up being a big disappointment. Which makes me big sad because I really loved her books and the Date a Douchebag series. Her most recent one that just recently came out says that it's very closely to another character from How to Date a Douchebag. And so that makes me go, okay, maybe I should try it again. Otherwise, though, I've been kind of taking a break from Sarah Nee just because I don't know, unless she comes out with a series that I really, really enjoy. She's kind of gotten away from her college romances. Not that there's anything wrong with that. People can branch out, but I think her characters still read very juvenile, and college romances, I think, is where she really fits. Adult romances, or at least, I don't know, I just don't really like the characters. Anyway, bit of a disappointment. Next most disappointing book I read was The Locker Room by Megan Quinn. I know Megan Quinn's kind of I've seen a lot of she's kind of a romance booktuber favorite. I think I've seen quite a few romance booktubers like her. I've read 1 or 2 books of hers that I enjoyed, and then I read 2 books of hers that I really didn't enjoy. And this is the one that I really didn't enjoy. That I was super excited about because I love a sports romance, but again, I feel like you fall into the same trap of these characters are still a little bit too juvenile. And they meet in college, and then they have this huge time gap. I think this is the one where they have a huge time gap. I don't know. And the characters just weren't sitting right for me. The chemistry wasn't sitting right for me. It was just a huge disappointment. I love sports romances. Why can't sports romances be good sports romances? Please? To the point where I disliked the book so much that I just could not, I haven't picked up a Megan Quinn book since. So I don't know if I'll go back to her. I've heard really good things about her small town romances were really good. Maybe I'll try those ones instead on her backlist, and maybe I'll enjoy them better. But these ones have been kind of a miss for me lately. A disappointing book of 2020 for me was The Idea of You by Robin Lee. So this was a romance that I got from a mystery box that I got from Rip Bodice when Rip Bodice was still doing mystery boxes. I was really excited with what they sent me, and this was one of them that they sent me, and I was really excited for it. It sounded really great. It was an age gap. The woman is older. She's dating a boy band member. Just seems like a lot of fun. But it's not a HEA, guys. It's not a happily ever after. Or even a happy for now. And that's when I learned the term that I think I saw someone on Goodreads review it saying that it wasn't a romance, it was a love story, which I definitely feel like that it fits that. It was a love story. But it was not a romance because it didn't end up happily ever after. And a romance is something that ends in happily ever after. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I did really, really enjoy the book, and I thought the writing was really well done, and I really liked these characters, but the ending was a big womp womp for me. That was a sad disappointment for me. Next most disappointing read. These are really sad to talk about. These are making me feel they're making me feel sad. Because I was all excited for them. I don't want books to be bad. I don't want books to be disappointing. I want to love them. I want to love all of them. I did not love them. I did not love this list. Big sad. Okay. Moving on. The next one that was a big disappointment, which was a big disappointment for a lot of people, was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. When I initially heard the news that this book was going to be focused on President Snow, I wasn't necessarily disappointed. I thought that might still be an interesting story, and I was willing to go there and revisit Panem and see what Suzanne Collins wanted to share and what story she wanted to share. Granted, I think there was a lot of interesting things introduced, and I think the first half of the book was excellent. I really enjoyed. And then the second half of the book just really lost its way. It's kind of almost reads like 2 separate books for me. And I think she was introducing so many ideas that she lost the train of thought of, this is supposed to be a villain origin story. I want to see him become the bad guy. And he never really consciously became that. There was a big disconnect for me of how President Snow ended up President Snow. I could see breadcrumbs of it throughout, and then the end didn't push far enough. I don't know. It was lacking the element of the villain origin story that I wanted from this book. And again, the first half, excellent. The second half was a hot mess. I don't know what happened. So yeah, definitely a big disappointment for me for 2020. So since I was really excited for it, or at least looking forward to it with realistic expectations, and it's still somehow disappointed. So. And the next big disappointment for me was Cinderella is Dead by Kalynn Bayron. I wanted to love this book so much. I was super hyped for it. I love fairy tale retellings. I love them. And I was really excited for this one because it was a queer Black girl romance, sapphic, Cinderella retelling. It was all the things that I wanted to see and I wanted to love. I did not love the story. If you wanted a book that just introduced ideas of how restrictive a heteronormative society is and how the patriarchy is all bad, the allegory for those came very strongly across, almost hitting a hammer over your head of how much that came across, which is not a bad thing, but I wanted some story from that. I didn't want just a huge allegory. I wanted like a story that interweaves those themes in it. And instead I just got a big allegory. That was it. The story was really, really lacking for me. The plot points were so weak. The world building was so weak. I couldn't overlook those things. And I was really disappointed about that. However, it is her first book. I thought there was still moments of genius in it. I still really enjoyed certain parts of it. Her newest book that's coming out this year is going to be a Secret Garden retelling. I'm going to read it. I want to read it and give her another chance. And I'm hoping that it'll be great, because I wanted to love Cinderella is Dead oh so much. It just didn't, and it missed the mark for me. And I was super disappointed about it. Anyway, next one. Man, these are making me sad. Next one is One to Watch by Kate Stayman London. Now, I will say the audio for this was excellent. I strongly recommend the audio if you still want to read this. However, the story was, again, represented as this is going to be a positive fat representation, positive plus size girl representation romance. We did not get that. We got a fat girl who was crippling insecure and had multiple issues, and then had to like go through this TV show that treated her terribly. The fat phobia was disgusting in this book. I had so many issues with it. So many that were so upsetting. And I think I ranted and raved to this book. I have ranted and raved to my husband about so many times because I was so upset about it. But I was also so obsessed. Like, I needed to know how it ended. And it was also way too long. Way too long. I didn't need like the disgusting fat phobia stuff, like of Twitter comments interwoven in the story. I didn't need that. Like, it didn't add to the story to me. In fact, it was really jarring and took me out of the story a lot of the time. There were so many parts of it that were just really disappointing and unenjoyable, but there was also parts of it that I really liked. If it had been just a story of like, here's a girl who finds romance on like a bachelorette type show, I would have enjoyed it. But I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But the fact that it was supposed to be this really positive plus size representation and it wasn't, was really upsetting and made me dislike the story so much more. And yeah, that's what I'll say about it. And that's how I felt about it. The next one for most disappointing in 2020 is A Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I know there's going to be so many people who are going to be upset about this one too, because it's a BookTube favorite. I see people talk about this one all the time. And granted, I listened to it on audio. Maybe it's not the right book for audio. Sometimes there's certain books that aren't. Certain books will translate into audio very well. Maybe this was one of them. I don't know. It was a disappointing one. I've seen so much hype for The Starless Sea. I was expecting this really epic, sweeping fantasy. And it is. And at the same time, it isn't. I don't know how that happens, but it does. Because nothing resolved itself. Or, like, you were on this journey that, like, where you never arrived at your destination. And I need it to arrive somewhere. I don't know how else to phrase that. The writing is beautiful, but as far as the story goes and the plot goes, it was missing things for me. So, which is what makes it one of my most disappointing reads list. This is why it's there. The last, but not least, most disappointing of 2020, I'm going to also include Midnight Sun. I don't necessarily think it's because Midnight Sun is bad. I do think it's because that nostalgia has killed this book. In rereading Twilight and then reading Midnight Sun at the end of 2020, which took me a really long time to do, and I had a hard time plotting through those books, they just didn't age well. They didn't age well. Or maybe I'm like a different person. Like, it could be that too. Like, I have come a long way that, like, I can't help but see, like, the racism and misogyny and sexism and issues with it. So Edward's not as romantic as we all thought. So yeah, I think it could be both those things. It didn't age well, and I'm in my 30s now, and I've come to know better. Yeah, we'll go with that. So that makes it a most disappointing book for me, just because nostalgia didn't save it. Nostalgia didn't save it, unfortunately. It was way too long for what we had. That's the feelings for that one. Okay, this is a bummer list. This is my first time doing a most disappointing of 2020, and it's a big downer. Again, nothing against these authors. I know that they wrote out their hearts out, and I know that it is a piece of their artwork, and anytime you write something, it's a piece of your soul, I feel. These were just big disappointments for me and just didn't work for me for whatever reason. So, big sad. There'll always be books that I will love, though, and that's what makes the happiness happen. And that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below what your most disappointing read of 2020 was. I would love to know. If you like what you saw from me, please subscribe and hit likes and bells. I would really appreciate it. All my social media is down below. If you want to follow me on all the things, you can. I'm available on all the things. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!